Computer. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for another Sharks for Kids webinar. I'm really excited to be hosting this one because Lizzie is actually someone that I've been lucky enough to hang out with sharks with here in Bimini and show her some of the locals. So that was really fun and really excited to have her here visiting to talk a little bit about her conservation work, her filming work, her broadcasting work. Lizzie wears a lot of different hats, and Lizzie is a wildlife biologist. She's also a wildlife broadcaster and conservation filmmaker from Wales. And in her spare time, she's currently doing a PhD looking at the connection between African elephants, the kind of the interaction with humans and the coexistence alongside these amazing animals in Kenya using a specific type of tags. I'm sure she's going to talk a little bit more about that. So without further ado, just a quick note though, for those of you who have just joined, we love questions. We will go ahead and answer as many of those as we can. So please put them in the Q&A. You'll see a little icon at the bottom of the screen. We have disabled the chat, so make sure you put your questions in there, and at the end we will ask some of those to Lizzie. So I'm going to let you go ahead and take over, but thank you so much for being here with us. I'm really excited to hear more about your journey, your story.
Thank you, Gillian. Yeah, and it's got to say, it's been an absolute pleasure as well to head out and, as you say, meet some of your locals and spend time with Sharks for Kids and with yourself to learn more about your work. So thank you, and thanks for having me here today. Hello to everyone watching. Please do send in your questions. It would be really lovely to hear from you and to just, I guess, connect with you all. I know it's been a kind of a really odd time over the past year now, and we've all been trying to find interesting and new ways to connect with nature. So I'm really hoping that this talk will do just that. I kind of want to bring you on a bit of a journey to meet some of the species that I've been very lucky to get to know over the past year, and actually just talk about some of the fantastic shark species that we also get here in the UK. So as I said, please do get in touch. Feel free to ask any questions, and thanks, Gillian, for having me here. So a bit of background. So I am a broadcaster and biologist. So what does that mean? Well, my time is really split between broadcasting work, which is telling stories about the natural world, and studying wildlife, which is really my passion. When I was 6 years old, I knew I wanted to study African elephants. It's always been a big dream of mine. And since then, luckily, now I'm doing a PhD doing just that. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things around elephant conservation and elephants in Africa as well, and some of that research that's going on. But also I have a real love for marine species and marine environments. So as you can see from this picture, and I want to talk a little bit more about the species that I was very lucky to see in the southern region, so Antarctica and South Georgia, just last year, a year ago right now. This was where this photo was taken. This is a picture of a Gentoo penguin very rudely photobombing me while trying to get some footage of some leopard seals in these regions. So we'll learn all about kind of my areas of passion, if you like, including seabirds and penguins and sharks and marine environments and other species as well. So let me know if you have a favourite species or if you have any questions about those regions as well. So telling stories about the natural world has really led me to kind of move all over, to travel to with BBC Earth, with Nat Geo Live. We've done live streaming on their YouTube channels, a Discovery Channel. We've really had the pleasure of being able to meet lots of different species all over the world. So this was actually one of those examples where I was putting together a 3-part series for BBC Earth. We were looking at the various different incredible wildlife in these southern regions to put together some interesting conservation stories. Oh, let me try and go to the next slide. Hang on. Here we go. So before I kind of take us on that journey down south, this is my home. This is somewhere I'm really, really passionate about. This is the Pembrokeshire Coast in South Wales. So the islands that you can see just in front, kind of in front of that wonderful sunset, are called Skoma and Skookum Island. And for me, this is really a place that I missed during the lockdown. So I had the absolute pleasure with them using kind of broadcasting and presenting to tell stories about these wild islands off of Wales. They're a place which are absolutely stuffed with seabirds. So we get thousands and thousands of puffins and Manx shearwaters that come and nest on these islands overnight. And around these islands, you see these waters here. You get porpoise, you've got big, big pods of common dolphins, bottlenose dolphins as well, a little bit further up the coast, and also offshore sharks, which I'll come on to a little bit later on. But they're a place that kind of really inspired me growing up. It's a place where I've spent a lot of my time growing up, and we produced a series called Scoma Live, which was a live YouTube and Facebook series for the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales. So what that meant is we spent every week for 14 weeks, can you believe, talking about and celebrating the incredible wildlife on these islands, and what an absolute joy it was. We saw, you know, puffins coming out of their burrows and shearwaters at night time. We had live cameras on the island. We got to know the incredible wardens and the rangers on the island that live there alone and get to see this wildlife and learn all about this wildlife day in, day out. We had tree sparrows on the island, lots of seal colonies as well. So this for me is home. I'm hoping all of you watching here have a particular place that you resonate with. You think, this is my home, this is a place that I love and I'm inspired by, and looking forward to explore on your doorstep when things kind of turn a little bit more back to normal. So this is a very special place for me. And I mentioned also that I have a real love for elephants. So what do I do as a scientist? Well, I'm very early on in my PhD. I'm in my second year, but it's a really great opportunity actually. And I'll talk a little bit about the other species that I'm looking at the moment. But for me, I'm fascinated in animal behavior. So elephant behavior is something that has always kind of made me curious. I've always had that kind of ingrained curiosity for the natural world, but especially for elephants. They're intelligent, they're social, and I've spent a lot of time with African elephants, tracking them and IDing them in regions like in Kenya. And I'm currently looking at how these elephants move on a fine scale level. So what that means is we're using tags on the collars of elephants to not only understand where they go, but to try and get a better understanding of what they're doing when they are going. So we're trialing new tags right now. We deployed 3 tags a few weeks ago, and hopefully from that we'll get some data back which will be able to tell us what these animals are doing, you know, in all these. If you imagine all your movements in lots of different dimensions, the elephants in the way that they rumble can be detected potentially using these tags. The way that they may meet a fence, you know, what does an elephant do if it meets a fence, a brand new fence in their landscape which wasn't there before, but may be on an important migratory route. All these big questions and important issues that I really am passionate about and want to look at using these tags and using my PhD. So that's a big kind of passion for me and a big love of mine as well. But also these tags and this data I'm looking at the moment is in penguins. So these are actually king penguins in South Georgia, which I'll introduce to you very shortly. But I have the absolute pleasure of looking at the data of Magellanic penguins, which can be found in South America. So in a place called Punta Tumbo down in Argentina along the coast, you get some of the largest colonies of Magellanic penguins ever. And this is a similar scene, really. This is a picture taken in South Georgia just last year. I'll tell you a little bit about that now, but this is the scene that you're looking at when you get to these coasts. Of course, most of the lives of these incredible animals is spent out to sea, right? When they're foraging and they're feeding, it's a really important part of their ecology. But when they come in onto land, this is also a really small-ish window, depending on the species, but important window of time because they are raising their young, they're raising their chicks. So this is really important. So for me as a scientist, I want to know what the difference is between these different penguins when they're walking around, when they're behaving, when you see them right now on the coast in this really important time. So there was tags attached to these penguins in South America and we're looking at different changes in state. So whether that penguin is really full of food or empty, and how that changes the way it behaves and the way it moves, which is a really great opportunity, and really brilliant to actually be able to learn more about. But I wanted to share this picture because South Georgia, let me tell you, the southern regions are some of the most wild places on the planet. And as I said, I was out there documenting some films about these wild oceans, and South Georgia has to be one of the most wild and alive places on the planet. This is what you arrive to when you get to the island. It's a beach that's lined with fur seal pups that are roaring and screaming and shouting, and you have all these king penguins as well, constantly calling to their chicks. Busy parents going in and out to sea, taking it in turns to rear their chicks. It is a truly wild and smelly place. And South Georgia has a number of colonies in big, big numbers. This is a place called St. Andrews Bay and has 150,000 breeding pairs. So not 150,000, 350,000 penguins just plus on this one beach. You can imagine the noise. It's a really charismatic place. It's fully encompassing and is an incredible experience to be up close to these very curious animals. And one of the things that I learned when I was out there was all about kind of the bounce back of these birds on the island. Over time in South Georgia, there's been big pressures. You know, we hear about how brilliant our natural world is, but lots of our species are facing a lot of pressures. And luckily now, South Georgia is a very different place to what it was even 50 years ago. And one of the main reasons why these islands are so wild and so full of all this species is because a lot of the species that live here rely on Antarctic krill for food. So the seas surrounding this picture here, these islands, are called the Scotia Seas. And where they sit on a map, if you were to look at a map, here's Antarctica. And up here, I think if it's not flipped round for what you're looking at and looking at my screen, kind of to the east, northeast of Antarctica is
Hey, Lizzie, sorry to interrupt. We're just still seeing the penguins. I don't know if it's
oh yes, that oh, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you, but I don't know if it's still supposed to be on. It's just the same beach with the king penguins.
It is for now, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I've got no pictures of the krill. Sorry.
That's okay. All right, this is no, it's a different one now. It's a it's a full screen of penguins. Okay, so it just moved again.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, no, jump in if there's any other technical issues, but thank you. Yeah, so a lot of the species that live here feed on Antarctic krill, and because of where the islands are positioned, as I said, northeast of Antarctica, Antarctic krill in the later stages of their life cycle end up moving up. You know, when they're bigger, they're fatter, and there's a bigger biomass, a bigger amount of these krill. They kind of float upwards, get into with currents, get pulled into the Scotia Sea around South Georgia. So this is why you see so many brilliant species surviving on so many on so much kind of rich Antarctic krill in these regions. So yeah, just a bit of background really on the penguins and kind of linking it with my love of seabirds, which I'll come on to in a minute, but a really, really wild place. This is another species that I had the pleasure of filming down in Antarctica. This is a leopard seal. Now, you may know leopard seals as some of the most formidable and predatory pinnipeds in a group called pinnipeds. Our seals, our sea lions are all pinnipeds. And these are some of the most exciting, in my opinion, seals that we really have. They have these really long reptilian heads. They look very kind of menacing, but actually they're very intelligent, very curious seals, and they actually largely feed on Antarctic krill as well. But when the time is right and when those chicks are entering the water, when they're at least suspecting of predators, they will actually take some penguins as well. And I wanted to share this clip with you. This is one that can obviously smell us from far away on a little ribboat as we were passing. Really fantastic. You can see that kind of mottled dark patches on this leopard seal. Beautiful things. But look at this large leopard seal that actually came in and ended up, you can see that giant reptilian head, and they have these kind of what's called tricuspidal teeth. And what that means is they basically have teeth with 3 points on. And this is all to do with sieving that krill, that important krill that I was telling you about. So this leopard seal ended up actually popping our rib boat as it came over. It was very curious, wanted to know what we are. You can imagine a big squishy rib boat full of unlike us, you know, we have hands, we can touch things or want to explore something, but for a leopard seal, they have their mouths. That's how they explore. So as it was exploring our rib boats, it kind of just gave it a bit of a squeeze and down it went. So a really close experience with a very fantastic leopard seal there. I've touched on penguins and leopard seals in the southern regions, but kind of bringing it back closer to home, really my love for penguins has come from a real love for seabirds that we get, especially here in the UK. And I really want to champion UK wildlife. So this is a little clip of, you may recognise them. They're the UK's largest seabird. They are, of course, northern gannets. You can tell they're northern gannets. They have these huge wingspan, up to 2 feet, and they have these nice bright yellow heads and these kind of bony plates on their bills. They're really lovely birds. And a lot of people think, wow, as they're flying over the coast, you know, what a fantastic bird. But they're also incredible swimmers. Now, you may have seen in videos or pictures of gannets when they go diving for fish, they can actually dive really deep down. So they can reach up to 60 miles an hour as they enter the water, hitting that water, diving down and using their wings as kind of fins, if you like. You know, as we saw in our penguins, they're really renowned for being really great swimmers. Well, so are some of our birds like gannets. And these are the birds that I've, you know, had the joy of growing up with, learning more about throughout my career. And I filmed this off of Shetland, up off the coast of Scotland. So really excellent swimmers there, and just our brilliant bird. We actually have the largest colony of northern gannets in a place called Grassholm Island, off of the coast of Wales. So really lucky to spend lots of time with these amazing birds. Now, I'd love to know if anyone's seen this picture before. This was a picture taken a few years ago now. That's me behind a giant barrel jellyfish. Now you may be thinking, that is a very big jellyfish. It wasn't quite as big as this picture, but it was the same length as me. So it was a really big jellyfish, and the largest one I'd ever seen. And again, this was on UK coast. So this was actually in a place called Cornwall. And these jellyfish come to our coast to feed on plankton, and to you actually can watch them as they move along the coast, going along and feeding during the warmer months when we have more plankton coming in. So again, an amazing encounter right here on our doorstep. And you at home, wherever you're watching, you may have jellyfish washing up on your beaches. I would highly recommend learning more about these jellyfish, because they're not just gelatinous blobs. Although a large number of them, most of them don't have brains, they actually are quite sophisticated in how they move. You know, they move over huge distances in order to feed. They move up and down water columns in order to feed. So they have deliberate movements. And the world of jellyfish is quite mysterious. So if you get a chance, check out jellyfish, and check out giant barrel jellyfish as well. They're the UK's largest species, and they are a brilliant find. We actually get different species come into our coast to feed on these jellyfish, including turtles. So the same few weeks after we took this picture, same summer, we had a leatherback turtle also eating away at a barrel jellyfish. So really lucky to have them on our coast. And let me know if you've had any great encounters. My love for marine life has kind of, I've been very lucky to see species all over, and of course I have a real love for whales as well. So not the country, although the country as well, but the group of cetaceans. You know, whales. These are 3 humpback whales that are spotted in Norway. So I've been now to northern Norway for the past 3 years to learn all about why orca and humpback whale are coming to these regions in northern Norway to feed on these herring. But not only learning more about why they're coming to these waters, but if there's any changes moving forward. Because in Norway, there's some of the most well-managed fisheries of herring that you will see anywhere in the world. But the people, us, you and I, Norwegians, and internationally, we are in direct competition, right, with the same food as species like orca and humpback whales that come to these waters. So for me, it's a curiosity to know what changes are happening, how that's important, and to be able to go out and piece together a documentary and get the opportunity to film incredible species like whales. Here we go. So I also want to kind of nod before I go into some of the great species that you get in the UK. Now, I'm not like Gillian and I have hammerheads and tiger sharks, which are an absolute joy in places like the Bahamas, but we do have lots of pretty cool species here in the UK. This is of course a snap from a blue shark that I was in the water with just last summer. And you know, here in the UK, people forget that we do have some incredible sharks here. We actually have over 40 species of sharks, some seasonal visitors, some resident visitors, which I'll talk about very shortly. But we're very lucky that the waters around the UK are full of different shark species. So really looking forward to this summer coming up, 2021, heading out back into off of the coast of Wales in order to see what shark species we can find and try and get some more footage of these fantastic blue sharks, which I'll talk a little bit more about now. I just wanted to include this, and I saw, if you go on the Shark Education Instagram page, this is not kind of my picture, this was taken from a scientific study, read this from The Guardian and from the Shark Education Instagram as well, about the bioluminescent kite fin shark, which is just incredible. And I wanted to include it because, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions, and how the media portray sharks is a constantly changing and uphill battle, if you like, for shark scientists and experts like Gillian, and for all the conservationists and the scientists out there that are trying to celebrate these incredible species and not make them out to be menacing or have this bad reputation. And this story, I think, is a perfect example of how just brilliant then so little we know about these sharks. This is the largest vertebrate now known to have bioluminescence, and I was reading all about the different theories. If you haven't read it, please do go in there, check out the article. But as you can see, that kind of underbelly of this kite fin shark, which lives in the regions in the water called a mesopelagic area, which is essentially can be from 100 to 1,000 meters below areas of sunlight. So they need this way of producing their own light for various different reasons. Different species do that, lanternfish as well. And yeah, kite fin shark have been shown to have bioluminescence on their underbelly, either thought to distract prey or to actually kind of help find prey along the seabed as well. So the kite fin shark will eat a number of things, as well as not lampreys, hagfish, sorry, as well. So really kind of deep sea dwelling sharks, and an incredible adaptation, something really, really exciting and new to science. So sharks are 100% all for celebrating and nothing else, I think, is a really nice little recent example of what we're still learning. So as I mentioned, we have over 40 species of sharks in the UK. Now, blue sharks that we get here are, of course, they're migratory. They have some of the longest migrations in all the world. Of course, you know this already. And we're really lucky because there's a section off of the coast of Wales where I'm particularly interested in spending some time and getting to know what sharks visit these waters, and again, how that's changing over the years. So if you look at this little map here, hopefully you can all see it, there's a stretch. So here's Wales, this is Pembrokeshire. I'm hoping you can see my mouse. This is Pembrokeshire, the kind of the southwesterly horn, just sticking out here of Wales on the right hand side, and to the left of that you've got this stretch called the Celtic Deep. And what happens is from 15 to 20 miles offshore of that Pembrokeshire coast, you'll have depths of about 15 meters, maybe 20 meters, and when it reaches that darker patch where the Celtic Deep is, that drops down to 100 meters, and it's this big shelf that you can see on the right hand side. And what that means, it creates an upwelling of nutrients and a number of different prey, actually can be found in this region, which then goes on to attract even some of the larger species of sharks, like our blue sharks. And predominantly the shark species, the sex of blue sharks that we see are adult females that can be found in these regions that migrate to these areas in the summer months, as well as other sharks like basking sharks, which I'll talk about a little bit shortly. And I've seen those sharks in this region in the Celtic Deep. So in June, July and August, I'll be heading out to see if we can spot more blue sharks, learn more about the individual blue sharks that are coming along. And I'm doing that with Celtic Deep expeditions. So it's a really great opportunity to celebrate those sharks on our coastline and learn more about kind of what species we get here, which is an ongoing fascination. Okay, some of the more resident species that you may find if you're not from the UK and you're watching from else. This is quite a common and really exciting small spotted cat shark. I love them. They're all over our coasts. You may also get nurse hounds, which are a bit more rare to see. They look very similar. They're a little bit larger to small spotted cat sharks, which get their name. You can see by the shape of their eyes. It's kind of cat-like. They've got these brown spotting, like mottled appearance with kind of lighter skin. And you'll see them along our shores, and they're really, really great to see. I've seen them a number of times around the coast of Wales and in various different locations as well. Really beautiful shark that we get here, along with other resident species of shark as well. So these are probably one of the most common, as I said, nurse hounds as well, which can be found in our coast around or all times of year. You may also, if you haven't seen small spotted cat shark, you may see evidence of some of our shark species or our rays or our true skates as well. So this is, I hope most of you will recognise, of course, a mermaid's purse. So this is an egg case that's been washed up. And, you know, not everyone gets to go out and see these wonderful sharks, but you do get to see evidence of them. And these are the best evidence examples of the sharks that we get here. And there's lots you can learn from these mysterious wash-ups on our beaches. So this was a picture I wanted to share with you. It's a bit silly, but in one day I went round this beach and I was just blown away by the number of mermaids' purses and egg cases that I found. And there's lots you can learn about the shape, the size, the colour, the appearance of these egg cases. So you'll see here, kind of closer to my face, there's some yellowy ones with what looks like curly bits. Those are called tendrils. These are really important to actually help these egg cases hold on to substrates and hold on to the shore during kind of really high tides and big stormy seas. This egg case, of course, this embryo inside the egg case. I should actually explain what the egg case actually is. If you imagine, it's actually protects that embryo during those stages of development. The embryo will be in that egg case for a few months, and eventually that ray, that skate, or that shark will end up coming out of that egg, and then you get empty egg cases, which is what you can see here. And I mentioned that they're anchored with all these different tendrils, those curly tendrils. So those yellow ones are small spotted cat shark egg cases. So a small spotted cat shark came out of one of those egg cases, which is just brilliant to think about. But of course, the ones at the front look very, very different. They've got kind of these horns, and that's really where you can start to learn and ID all about your rays and skates and sharks. So the ones at the front probably belong to a blonde ray or a ray species. They tend to be bigger, larger, darker in colour, and have these horns at the top. Whereas our more common resident shark species, like small spotted cat sharks, are smaller in appearance, longer. They have that kind of yellowy colour and curly tendrils to hold on. So big differences in appearance. And if you are somebody who sees one of these and you know it's empty as well, if you find one, all you have to do is hold it up to the sun and see if it's got something inside it. If it does, either put it back down safely where you found it, or even if it's safe to do so and you can find guides on how to do this appropriately, you can place it somewhere safe, slightly back in the water. But if you can, just avoid picking up one that has an alive shark or ray or skate inside them at all. You want to make sure you get empty ones so you're able to kind of take a closer look later and take it home and learn more about what species was in that particular egg case. So there are guides online that you can check out on how to ID your egg cases. A brilliant activity if you're someone who wants to know more about the sharks in the UK coast. Okay, so before I wrap up, I've already run out of so much time, but I do want to kind of just run through very quickly some of the brilliant species that we get here in the UK. Now, I've been very lucky to see on one day, the same day, poor beagle sharks, thresher sharks, blue sharks. Oh, we've got Liberty coming in. Hello, hi Liberty. And basking sharks as well, if I haven't already said that. But poor beagle sharks are absolutely brilliant. They kind of have shorter bodies, stouter bodies, and their name's really interesting. Their names actually come from paw comes from porpoise, which is the shape kind of, well, you know, porpoises have kind of shorter bodies compared to dolphins. They're more stouty. So paw comes from porpoise, which resembles the appearance of a pawed beagle. And the beagle comes from the fact that they're really good hunters and the way that they hunt for food. So we're very lucky to have paw beagles on our coast, and they are really, really lovely sharks that we actually get here. And I've seen them firsthand, which is brilliant. I'm hoping you'll know what this shark species is. It's of course a thresher shark, most distinctive because its long tail, which again makes it a really efficient hunter. So that tail can be as long as you can see from that photo, as long as its body. And they're really efficient hunters with shoals of fish. So what they'll do is they'll kind of stun lots of fish with that really long tail in order to eat them. They're absolutely beautiful sharks. And if you're really lucky, you'll actually get to see thresher sharks leaping out of the water over and over again, breaching up the water, which is something that I've seen off of the coast of Wales as well. And it's a really exciting thing to see, actually. Liberty, no problem. If you have a question, please do ask away. So actually, I was reading recently, really interesting, that there's thought to be potentially another species of thresher shark, and maybe Gillian will be able to correct me if I'm wrong about this, but there's the pelagic thresher shark, the common thresher shark, and I think it's the big-eyed thresher as well. And back in 1985, I believe, they found DNA for another species of shark, but have never seen that since. So there's potential maybe that there could be another subspecies of thresher shark out there, which again is just really incredible to think about. So much we still don't know. Of course, the blue sharks that I've already talked about, and hoping to spend more time with this summer. Huge migratory, fantastic, curious animals when you see them looking at you. And I love that you can see all the kind of pitted noses there in this picture. And we were really lucky. We had 3 or 4 adult females coming around and curiously bumping into our fins and coming to see who we are. So fantastic. Love blue sharks. Of course, some of the most widespread sharks and some of the most numerous, but also some of the most the species facing some of the biggest ecological pressures as well. Oh gosh, just cut off this picture. I wanted to share this with you because this kind of, it did show, sorry Gillian, but the scale of a boat to the basking shark. This is a picture that I was on that boat a few years ago, taken by my friend Peter Coles when we were out to try and find filter feeding basking sharks, which of course are different to our blues and our poor beagle sharks because they're filter feeders, but they are a real highlight here in the UK. This was a 10-foot basking shark that was at the surface feeding along in Cornwall, of course feeding on plankton as well. I believe Isla Hodgson is also doing a talk on basking sharks, so she'll tell you all about the wonders of basking sharks another time. She's a real expert and knows everything there is to know about basking sharks, but they happen to be one of my favourite finds here in the UK. Okay, does everyone know what this is? I hope you do. Of course, it's the iconic short fin Mako Shark, which is, of course, some of the fastest shark documented in our waters, reaching up to 74 kilometers an hour casually. So we also have short fin Makos as well, which are, of course, seasonal visitors to our waters. Really, really lovely sharks, and very lucky to have them on our coasts. Now, I wanted to include this. Of course, this is a great white shark, but I mentioned at the beginning about how the media and about how our perception of sharks really needs to change. And one of the things that we always get asked here in the UK is, has there ever been a sighting of great white sharks? We have had the odd, we've had the odd hammerhead, I believe, but to be honest, chatting to the experts in the shark world, they believe while it could be possible, it is unlikely that we've had a great white shark in our waters. It's something we get asked over and over again in the marine space is are there going to be great white sharks in our waters? And currently there isn't true documentation of great white sharks in our waters apart from the great white shark Lydia that came to, I think, about, was it 1,000 miles from the British coasts in 1977, I believe. So she was documented to come close to these waters in the Bay of Biscay area, but not actually be in British waters. So exciting thoughts about the future of actually what's in our waters and what we know about the sharks that visit our waters. But we have to be kind of really careful about how we sensationalize these species, how we kind of create this perception of these species, because we should be celebrating the species that we have on our coasts already, and those that we're very lucky to have as seasonal visitors, and do so in a really, really positive way if we're going to move forward and help with the protection of all these species that we get here. So my one message from this, I hope you all enjoyed that whistle-stop tour through some of my favorite species. But my one message is, explore the wildlife on your doorstep. For me, I feel really lucky that here in the UK, we're really learning more about what fantastic shark species we have on our coasts. And of course, be curious about the species that you may really kind of long and want to know more about, and do so using shark education and all Gillian's work, which I just think is absolutely brilliant. There's a real community of shark lovers, and I hope that is all of you watching here today. So yeah, just thank you all so much for listening. I hope you really enjoyed, and yeah, thank you so much. That's it.
Well, thank you so much. A lot of really, really incredible animals, and thank you, Lizzie, for sharing that. And for those of you who are in the UK or just interested, we do have some coloring pages featuring the species that Lizzie highlighted. We'll also be sharing on the Sharks for Kids page some information about the summer trips that she's going to be doing. So stay tuned for that. It's remarkable. And before I go into some of the other questions, I love that you share about local, like what's in your backyard. And do you think did COVID and the change in the world, did that really inspire that, or emphasize? Maybe you were always interested, but it really kind of pushed you to, because we couldn't travel, right? We're kind of in our own little spaces. So I think sometimes we take for granted what's in our backyard, or we don't think, if we're not traveling someplace exotic, that we're not seeing stuff. But you really celebrated in the water and on land how much life there is to see. Did COVID motivate a lot of that, or emphasize it more?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I found myself, someone who always thought I was passionate about local wildlife, doing exactly that, kind of looking a lot harder and a lot closer and in more detail, and connecting with people who are working in these spaces with these animals on our coastlines. And also I've started to see shifts in actually championing and prioritizing some of the ways that we do conserve the wildlife on our coast. So I think moving forward, I will be looking a lot closer. And it's inspired me. I with my work, I guess, a lot of the stories we look for are some of the big stories, the ones that you really want to be able to make big change and big impact with. Well, actually, you can make the big change and big impact with the species that are right in front of you and the ones that you are most connected with. So 100%, going out. I've got so many mermaids purses, Gillian, it's ridiculous.
Oh, that's incredible. And yeah, you guys, like, I know that the Shark Trust, you can record your findings as well, and they use that kind of as citizen science, which is amazing. So if you guys get out there and find them, you can record that, and they use that to kind of understand populations and which species are in which regions. So really fun way to get involved in some research, no matter how old or young you are, and stuff that it's really important. Understanding these animals, where they are, how they spend their time, what habitats they're using, whether we're speaking about animals in the ocean or on land, is a big part of conservation. And it's really fun. It's a cool treasure to find, but it can also be really beneficial for this species. So really, really fun. All right, so this is a tough question for a lot of people. What is your favorite shark?
No, you didn't. Oh no. Okay, well, it's a bit of a cliche one. I'm gonna go for a blue shark. I'm sure everyone goes for a blue shark, but I really was amazed by how curious they are and how kind of, you see it in sharks a lot, how intelligent and how just incredible they are to look at, and they're looking back at you and you see how they behave, and they're just absolutely fascinating. But the encounters I've had with blue sharks really, really blew my mind. And seeing them in a place like the Celtic Deep, off of somewhere that is my home, and in seeing them in those numbers and how they're interacting with one another, and they move through the water columns. I'm gonna have to go blue. I think it might be a bit obvious, but it's that would be my one pick. What's yours?
Mine's definitely the great hammerhead. Really lucky that here in Bimini in the Bahamas, they migrate and they spend the winters here with us, and so I'm really lucky that to get to spend a lot of time with these beautiful animals. And
So
but
cool.
you mentioned kind of conservation, and sadly, as amazing as these sharks are, they're a critically endangered species. So always just kind of like a reminder of, you see something that's so beautiful and you want to protect it, but really sad when like you were talking about, like blue sharks are heavily overfished, makos.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just like you're so excited, but you realize
Mm.
that they're in trouble. So
Yeah, and I guess it kind of makes it a little bit harder as well, because it's almost like the more you learn about the species, it's kind of right now, especially as here in the UK, spending more and more time with these sharks, they become so important to you, and I guess so important in the grand scheme of course, everyone knows the ecological value of sharks in our ecosystem. So it's this time pressure, I think, to really change the way we protect and conserve and talk about these sharks. So yeah, it's tricky.
cool. We just had a
Mm.
comment from, oh, hang on, my screen's going crazy here. Trying to pull this back up. Miss Bowles said, thank you. Her grade 2 students loved the different photos of the sharks. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yay.
And yeah, lots of amazing photos. Like I said, if you check out the website, we have coloring pages, cool, some fun fact sheets that you can print out. I'm glad that your students joined us and were able to watch and see that.
Yeah,
Liberty would like to
we've got some
know.
questions as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so Liberty would like to know
No,
how your amazing career started post graduation. I'm in my final year of marine biology and coastal ecology at Plymouth Uni. I'm looking to go into a similar field, combining research and broadcasting, presenting. So, how did you kind of combine that?
good question. Good question. Well, firstly, congrats for being in your final year. That's really exciting. I know Plymouth Uni do some really brilliant work, so that's great. Yeah, it's a really funny one because I've always gone out and filmed, some really kind of basic and kind of self-motivated films alongside my studies. That's been something. I know it's not always easy when you're busy doing a degree, but you're surrounded by scientists and stories, and hopefully being down in Plymouth as well, the ocean, where there are so many brilliant sources of inspiration to piece together these stories if you are someone who wants to do presenting or broadcasting. So Liberty, I would recommend starting to go out there, pick up a camera, look at those who are working on some really cool projects, maybe approach some scientists and figure out if they need their projects amplified or they would like some help in trying to communicate the stories, and start putting together those films if you can. Get some people involved, some friends who may like the filmmaking side of it to help you out, and actually spend some time trying to actually get more experience broadcasting. That's really how I began. It's how I got spotted by CBBC, was by making a YouTube video and putting it on my YouTube channel, and it's kind of grown since then, really. And I still make my own films and odd bits of things I'm passionate about now. So I guess it's not really, I finished my studies and that was it. I just went straight into presenting. It's a really great passion of mine, but it goes alongside my studies and kind of what I really love, which is the wildlife. I don't know if you found the same, Gillian, kind of balancing the education world and the wildlife world with telling people about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of filming after, focused on science, and then always had a camera and started thinking it was really amazing to tell the story of what research was happening, why it was happening, or explaining it, because people maybe didn't understand, what is shark tagging, why are you doing that, and yeah, so being able to tell the story, and then using that all together for education. And so I think it's amazing to be able to combine, like you've done, the science and the media side of it, to put a story out there and to tell that story. And it's really, really important. But the same thing, yeah, just get out there and start creating videos, have fun with it, and do the things you're passionate about. And you guys, Lizzie did an amazing video for Sharks for Kids. We had a lot of fun, sharing some activities with students here in Bimini. And so you can see that on our YouTube channel as well as Lizzie. So yeah, I would say the same advice, like start telling your stories and start getting yourself out there and just have fun with it and gain some experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hit
Cool.
the nail on the head. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Antoine would like to know, which studies did you do? So probably maybe, before
Good
you, I mean,
question.
obviously you're starting your PhD, doing that now, but before that, what did you focus on?
Yeah, so it was called, my undergraduate degree was called animal behavior. So kind of links directly with kind of my interest and what I'm keen to look into. But I guess that also varies. I didn't do a marine studies based course, but we learned a lot about kind of marine ecosystems, and that overlaps within that, but with a large focus on kind of behavioral ecology and animal behavior. And that fed into my master's, which actually wasn't on elephants, it wasn't on sharks, it was on ladybird larvae. But that was opening up a whole new world of sensory systems in different species. And actually what's really cool with that link and sharks is that we were looking at how terrestrial species like ladybirds may have electrosensitivity, like in sharks, and how they detect their food. So it was really kind of put on its head masters, and a great experience to delve into something completely different. And my supervisor Daniel Robert was really leading in his field to try and explore electrosensitivity in different species. So yeah, that was before elephants.
Yeah, but it's amazing. It just shows, like, I say this a lot to people, is even if I want to work with sharks, but if you explore and take opportunities that, other animals, but that might open a door, you might learn some valuable skills, is to be open to that, be open to opportunities, and kind of diversify your knowledge base as well. And you might find that skills that you learn from that, working with a different animal or a different background, may help you pursue more of a focus on sharks, or the animal that you're really passionate about. But yeah, being open to that, because it might not always be the exact one right after the other path. It can be a little bit squiggly sometimes, and help you find your way. So I had a question sent beforehand too. So what is one animal that you haven't filmed that you would like to film?
Again, I'm going to have to go a little bit cliche, but I would love to film a polar bear or wolves. Polar bears are, wow. I mean, I've had the pleasure of filming brown bears and black bears and seeing them in Alaska, and it's just been a really great experience. But I have a friend, Wes.Larsen, he was telling me all about the dove bears. I think they're really, really brilliant. And so yeah, the polar bear is up there. I still haven't done it yet, Gillian. It's got to be soon.
Yeah, I know, it's sad, right? When you think about, like, there's a short, hopefully it's not the reality, but yeah, these animals are disappearing. And yeah, I think it would be incredible. I have a lot of friends that have gone to photograph and film them, and they're just, I don't know, it's mesmerizing just seeing them. And I would say that's one of the top animals I'd love to see as well. And just one last question to finish off. What would you say has been the most challenging part of filming wildlife? Like, what, or one situation, or in general, what is the most challenging?
If I'm honest, I think sometimes on the smaller shoots that I'm doing, or passion projects, you are up against the clock and you may be on a smaller budget, and you go in with all the best intentions to tell the best story visually, but sometimes you don't have the luxury of a huge production team and lots of hours of research and all the best connections to piece together the right story. So on one hand, it's kind of a challenge. On the other, it means you have to kind of get creative, right, and kind of push the boat out and think of creative ways of being able to capture a behavior, or yeah, I guess tell that story in a way that's going to be effective and visually strong. So I think that for me is a bit of a challenge. In a positive spin as well, I would say just you need to have patience, right? You need to have patience and an understanding that things don't always go to plan, especially with wildlife. You have to have
Mhm.
that kind of understanding of adaptability, that more often than not, you either are going to be kind of like surprised by not seeing something or seeing something different, but sometimes you get kind of really lucky and you get to see a spectacle that you didn't even plan for, you hadn't even predicted. So uh, the challenging thing is actually finding and documenting the story that you want to tell. But the benefits of that is that it's always a journey. It's always something that you learn more about along the way, and you get to experience new things. Gillian, I know you know all about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
uh,
Wildlife is unpredictable, but that's also what makes it amazing too. So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll finish with, okay. So just to finish on a really cool thing, what then has been a favorite filming moment, or not filming? You just encountered something cool and maybe you didn't have the camera, but what's been a favorite wildlife moment?
Yes. Okay. Good question. I know exactly what it is. So, in 2019, I had the pleasure of going with students to Borneo in a place called Danum Valley, and we were really, really lucky because we got to learn about well, I was actually there with geography students, so we were learning about the landscape and industry and the primary rainforest and the pressures on. It was really fascinating to kind of learn about an environment as well as the wildlife within it. And some of the work we were doing was going from river to river. Can you see, Gillian? You
Yep,
seem to be jumping a little bit. I just want
yep,
to make you can hear me. Yeah,
yeah,
you
I
still got
can
me.
hear
Sorry.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were moving from river to river, doing water samples to check the. Yeah, you've got me. Um, to taking water samples to check the river quality, and there were big moments where and journeys where I had to walk by myself from students to students through kind of literally dense primary rainforest. And I knew of an area. One of the locals had said there's an orangutan nest in the area. It's in the canopy. We'll have time to go see it another time. But I happened to be passing the orangutan nest, and I was by myself, and it was in this dense primary rainforest, and in this nest was a tiny orangutan. And it was just one of those moments where I didn't have my camera. I was by myself, no one else was there to see it. There was fruit falling from the tree. It was just this moment where I was looking directly into the eyes of an orangutan mother, and was just like, this is what it is, this is what it's all about. Unbelievable. I think it's something special about even if I wanted to film it, it was one of those moments. I wasn't well kind of up into the tree canopy, so it would have been, I guess, limited unless I have my big long lens. So I just took the moment for what it was and embraced the moment in nature. So that would be my most special moment. Yeah.
Oh, sounds amazing. And I think that is like, sometimes you have to put the camera down and you just have to be in that moment and really enjoy it. And that's for, students watching, people watching, like, get out in your backyard and see wildlife, and it's a really important thing to do, and share it like you've done locally and abroad. Like, it's really, really important.
Mm.
And even if it's sharing photos from your phone or videos, like, there's a way to share that message and share your passion. So yeah, well, thank you so much, Lizzie, for all of your time today and
Thank
beautiful
you.
images, your story. And thank you to everyone who joined us. This will be on our YouTube channel, so if you want to catch it again, if you missed anything or you just want to watch again and see all the amazing images and hear Lizzie's story, please check that out. And stay tuned for some updates on some of Lizzie's adventures. And thank you guys again for joining us. And thank you so much, Lizzie.
Yeah, thank you, Gillian. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.